Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. I'd like to now turn over this conference opportunity to our city manager. Please welcome her.
Thank you so very much. And first of all, let me just thank all of you for being here. I'd like to begin, first of all, by thanking Councilwoman Stewart as the chair of our Parks, Trails, and the Environment Committee. She is a true champion for every one of those words, parks, trails, and our environment. I also want to acknowledge Chair Guerrero of the Environmental Commission. Thank you so very much. And to members of our executive team for being here today. Your engagement and your leadership in this particular greenhouse gas inventory, I would say, is one of the priorities that really we have to appreciate you for making it a priority and taking time to be here. During the Parks and Trails and the Environment Committee meeting, Angela Hodges-Gott, our Director of the Office of Environmental Quality and Sustainability, presented the city's 2023 greenhouse gas emissions inventory. And so in just a few minutes, you'll have an opportunity to ask questions and engage more on the findings exactly from that inventory. We all know that redefining and reshaping a city the size of Dallas comes with some real challenges, but also we're excited about the tremendous opportunity. Across the country and right here at home, there is growing momentum around creating communities where residents can walk to work, dine close to where they live, and have the ability to access services more easily. And we want to make sure that we continue to focus on ways that we improve overall quality of life for every single resident and how we strengthen that sense of community across all parts of Dallas. We are committed to being a leader in sustainability, and the time, the rigor, and the coordination that is required to produce data of this caliber demonstrates that commitment. Based on the newly released census data, Dallas County was reported as the third fastest growing metropolitan area in the country in 2024. And we are gaining quickly on Chicago. That growth brings energy, it brings opportunity, and it also means that we're operating in one of the most heavily traveled and dynamic regions in Texas and in this nation. Since the Office of Environmental Quality and Sustainability was established, we have been able to collect 2 decades of emissions inventories. The early inventories were more limited in scope and largely conducted to respond to requests. But today, this work plays a much larger role. We collect this data to guide decision-making, to manage and improve the priorities outlined in the Comprehensive Environmental and Climate Action Plan that we refer to as CECAP. This has given us an opportunity to have a plan that we're able to track our progress towards the city's climate goals. With 16 city departments actively involved in implementing the CECAP, this plan serves as a shared roadmap that aligns environmental objectives across the entire city. Having this updated data gives us the meaningful benchmarks that will allow us to continue with the planning and the implementation of CECAP, particularly as we work towards our long-term goal of net zero emissions by 2050. It also supports other departments as they develop their budgets, as they develop their annual work plans. It helps identify both where we are succeeding and where we must continue to focus our energy to reach our goals. We've just come through some very challenging days of ice and extreme cold. And I believe it serves as a reminder for all of us that climate change in North Texas is not limited to extreme heat alone. We're also seeing the intensification of other weather events, whether we're talking about tornadoes, we're talking about severe storms. All of these things can disrupt daily life and impact our ability to conduct business. That affects both our residents and our city staff and employers. Climate change is one of the most significant challenges of our lifetime, but we also have something very powerful on our side: data, technology, and a collective determination to act, and act with a sense of urgency. And with that, I'd like to bring to the podium Councilwoman Kathy Stewart, who is making sure that we're approaching this with a sense of urgency. She is the chair, again, of the Parks, Trail, and Environment Committee, and she is a true champion for all of Dallas. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, City Manager Tolbert. We appreciate you being here this morning. We know you're a busy woman. Good morning, everyone. As chair of the Parks, Trails, and Environment Committee, I want to share some of the key takeaways we heard this morning from the briefing on greenhouse gas emissions, specifically the community-wide emissions portion of the presentation. The good news is that overall, community-wide emissions have decreased 11% since the baseline inventory conducted in 2015. Today, we are demonstrating the city's commitment to climate mitigation and sustainability by sharing vital knowledge gained from data gathering and analysis. The 2023 inventory demonstrates significant progress towards emissions reductions. However, it also shows we have more work to do in order to meet our net zero 2050 goal. We can get greener and cleaner. One of our biggest improvements is in the waste sector. Solid waste emissions declined by 28% from 2019. The report indicates significantly reduced emissions resulting from increased waste diversion from landfills. In other words, we put less material in the landfill, which helps enormously because the decomposition of the waste is the main source of emissions. The improvement is a 543,131 tons decrease in the amount of waste put in the McComas landfill. City programs like Zero Waste have had an important role in changing attitudes and efforts towards waste reduction. Another important win for our city is the large amount of carbon dioxide that is now captured, stored, and kept out of circulation by our green spaces and our trees. Dallas is fortunate to have a significant urban canopy. As you already know, Dallas has over 400 parks and more than 600 acres of tree canopy in the Great Trinity Forest. Through city programs and valuable work of our nonprofit organizations, we plant over 3,000 trees each year in Dallas. We are working diligently to green Dallas. And our efforts are making a difference. The 2023 inventory showed an increase in carbon capture from our urban forest tree canopy, resulting in 87,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent, that has to all be said together, taken out of the atmosphere through photosynthesis. We have increased the amount of carbon dioxide captured and stored by 11% from the 78,000 metric tons that were captured in 2015. In addition to the wins, we also have challenges. In the transportation sector, Dallas has seen an increase in emissions as compared to our 2015 and 2019 data. This is attributed to our continued population growth and our location at the intersection of 3 heavily traveled interstates. The new inventory results show that 82% of these emissions are from passenger and commercial vehicles. So we will continue working with the North Central Texas Council of Governments, DART, and other transportation stakeholders to promote alternate commute options. We will also utilize grant funding from NCT-COG to install new EV charging stations to help with the transition to electric vehicles by increasing our charging station networks, as well as continue to look for other opportunities to support emissions reduction in the transportation sector. The data gained from this inventory and the contributions from residents and stakeholders motivates us to continue to work to reach our goals and to ensure healthy living in the city of Dallas. It is now my privilege to introduce our relatively new director to OEQS, Angela Hodges-Scott.
Good morning, everyone. I am Angela Hodges-Scott, the Director for the Office of Environmental Quality and Sustainability. First, let me share regrets from Chair Guerra of our Environmental Commission. She was ill this morning and unable to attend after all, and was very sad about that. But to move on to my notes to share with you today, while it's true that CCAP includes ambitious goals, they are necessary goals to improve the health and welfare of all of our residents. It is therefore critical for us to meet the goals of CCAP. While we've heard some highlights from the community-wide 2023 inventory reporting, I would like to take a few minutes to focus on the local government operations, or ways that we here in the city government are working to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. While the local government operations only account for approximately 4% of the community-wide emissions, it is important for us to demonstrate leadership through action when it comes to CCAP implementation and responsible, sustainable goals. One of the key takeaways from the local government operations section of the report is that the emissions from city operations have decreased 17% from 2019 totals and 29% from 2015 baseline totals. Across several local government operations sectors, we see continued greenhouse gas emissions reductions tied to increases in renewable energy sources and reductions in energy consumption. For example, Dallas Water Utilities water treatment and wastewater treatment plants reduced emissions associated with electricity consumption by approximately 30.3% since 2019, which includes on-site power generation from biogas at the Southside wastewater treatment plant. To cite another example, electricity usage from city-owned streetlights and traffic signals has decreased approximately 24% since 2019 and 57% since 2015. Finally, solar projects at city buildings and facilities such as the upcoming solar panel installation at the Beckley Sainer Recreation Center reduce electricity consumption at each of those facilities. The upcoming Beckley Sainer project alone is expected to reduce the facility's annual energy consumption by 72%. Emissions from the city's vehicle fleet have also steadily decreased since 2015. Emissions decreased a total of 19.1% since 2015, which includes a 15.8% decrease between 2019 and 2023 due to the city's investment in electric vehicles and a decrease in total fuel use. Finally, I would like to thank the City Council, the City Manager, and all of our department directors and leaders for their commitment to CCAP and to making Dallas a more sustainable and thus a healthier city. The work of OEQS would not be possible without them. It is encouraging to see the progress made since CCAP's adoption in 2020, but there is still significant work to be done to reach net zero by 2050. OEQS remains committed to its role as CCAP leader, educator, and facilitator. And with that, I will ask Chair Stewart to return to the podium, and we will be happy to take any questions. And I will also add, I have members of my staff to assist with questions, and also a representative, Alex De Silva, from one of the consultants that worked on the inventory.
But can you provide more examples of how you can address
want to start or?
You go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah.
I will start. So transportation is a multi-pronged issue. It's one of those issues that it is great that we have more people moving to the city and to the DFW area. It does present challenges. While there are reductions in emissions from vehicles, just to turnover, as in the newer ones, have lower emissions. There's just more vehicles on the roads, and that's something that we have to contend with. And so it's a multi-pronged approach. Part of it is things that we were just discussing in the committee meeting today. It is working with our planning departments, it's working with our transportation and public works departments to determine, are there ways that we can impact so that there's less idling? Are there ways that we can impact so that there are better buffers where the heavily traveled highways are? There's a lot of aspects to consider when it comes to transportation. It's working through policy, working with our planning department, and focusing on how we can address through planning methods, better designed neighborhoods that encourage more walking, that encourage use of DART and transit such as that. So it's going to be an ongoing process. Which is why the CCAP it's a 30-year goal looking out, and it's part of the reason that we are looking at breaking it up into 5-year increments starting this year, and to developing more specific actionable plans in the short term that will help us get to long-term goals. Mm-hmm.
Just to add, excuse me, just a little bit. In our conversations in the committee meeting this morning, there was a lot of conversation around that question, what can we do about those particular emissions? And I think some of the understanding was it is a multi-department cooperative that we need. I mean, it's going to take Public Works understanding that we want to plant trees in medians, and transportation and public works will have some very specific rules about that, right? But we see that helping with both the urban heat island as well as transportation emissions. So we've got to work across departments to get this done. But one of the biggest things I think we really focused on this morning was planting trees, because of the carbon capture there and the ability to reduce some of our emissions just by planting trees. I know that sounds simple, but in the city of Dallas, it will probably be a little more complicated. But we do see that while we sort of wait for technology to catch up where it needs to be. Something we can do as a city is to be very thoughtful about where we plant trees and planting more trees. Other questions? You,
the cities that may pull out of DART are going to have an impact on the environment?
Goodness, that's a great question, and I don't know that that is one I would touch. Certainly, there's the possibility of an impact, but I think at this point it's too soon to know for sure how all of that will play out. Anything else? Y'all have made it way too easy on us. Okay. Yeah. That's a great idea. Do you want us on either side of the podium or come in front or?